Hare Krishna, everybody. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in the live studios in the Haven, Hive, Kent, on the southeast coast of England, where we can see the English Channel out of our window, a little bit from a distance. Welcome to all of you out there in cyberspace. We hope you're safe and well and happy. We welcome tonight Radharaman to our reading, our live reading here in the studio audience. Hare Krishna. He's usually out and about at this time doing his thing. Okay. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said this about the Caitanya-caritämrta. It was his life and soul, actually. And he wrote this, he said this, he spoke this poetic glorification, which then was recorded. And it appears in Bhakti Vikas Swami's Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava 212, which is a well-researched biography of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He was giving a lecture, it seems, in Munjer, and there was an earth tremor just as he stopped the lecture, and it caused the Ganga, which was nearby, to kind of come out of the bank over the bank a little bit, and then recede. And at that time, he said this: "In due course, Mahapralaya, devastating floods, will inundate the entire universe. If you attempt to survive by swimming in that deluge, then do not neglect to take hold of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Or, if you cannot hold all three, then release Bhagavad Gita. If necessary, you may also relinquish Srimad Bhagavatam, but under no circumstances release your hold on Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. For if this one book remains, then the flood can do no actual damage, because after it is subsided, the message of Shastra can be revived from Sri Caitanya-caritämrta alone, it being the essence of all Shastra." Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So here we are, Madhya-lila, Chapter 1, and we're hearing a kind of, we're just beginning to hear about Lord Chaitanya's activities in Jagannath Puri, kind of in a summary form, and then we're going to hear details later on in the book. We're starting with text 87, and this is discussing how Srila Prabhupada, how Sri Chaitanya Mahäprabhu, Prabhupada's discussing how Sri Chaitanya Mahäprabhu is acting in Jagannath Puri. Beginning with text 87. Just as Srimati Radharani talked inconsistently with a bumblebee in the presence of Uddhava, Sri Chaitanya Mahäprabhu, in his ecstasy, talked crazily and inconsistently day and night. Purport: this unmada, madness, is not ordinary madness. When Sri Chaitanya Mahäprabhu talked inconsistently, almost like a crazy fellow, he was in the transcendental ecstasy of love. In the highest transcendental ecstasy, there is a feeling of being enchanted in the presence of the enchanter. When the enchanter and the enchanted become separated, mohan, or bewilderment, occurs. So when When so bewildered, due to separation, one becomes stunned, and at that time, all the bodily symptoms of transcendental ecstasy are manifested. When they are manifest, one appears inconceivably crazy. This is called Transcendental Madness. In this state, there is an imaginative discourse, and one experiences emotions like those of a madman. The madness of Srimati Radharani was explained to Krishna by Uddhava, who said, "My dear Krishna, because of extreme feelings of separation from you, Srimati Radharani is sometimes making her bed in the groves of the forest, sometimes rebuking a bluish cloud, and sometimes wandering about in the dense darkness of the forest. Thus she has become like a crazy woman." Text 88. The last 12 years of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were passed in this transcendental craziness. Thus he executed his last pastimes in 3 ways. 89. For the 24 years after Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the renounced order, whatever pastimes he executed were unlimited and unfathomable. Who can understand the purport of such pastimes? Text 90. Just to indicate those pastimes, I am presenting a general survey of the chief pastimes in the form of a synopsis. 91. This is the first synopsis. After accepting the sannyas order, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu proceeded toward Vrindavan. Purport. Clearly these statements are a real account of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's acceptance of the renounced order of life. His acceptance of this renounced order is not at all comparable to the acceptance of sannyas by Mayavadis. After accepting sannyas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to reach Vrindavan. He was unlike the Mayavadi sannyasis who desire to merge into the existence of the Absolute. For a Vaishnava, acceptance of sannyas means getting relief from all material activities and completely devoting oneself to the transcendental loving service of the Lord. This is confirmed by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2, 2.55. Anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjataha nirbandha krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchate. For a Vaishnava, the renounced order means completely giving up attachment for material things and engaging non-stop in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The Mayavadi sannyasis, however, do not know how to engage everything in the service of the Lord. Because they have no devotional training, they think material objects to be untouchable. Brahmasatyam jagan mitya. The Mayavadis think that the world is false, but the Vaishnava sannyasis do not think like this. Vaishnavas say, why should the world be false? It is reality, and it is meant for the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For a Vaishnava sannyasi, renunciation means not accepting anything for personal sense enjoyment. Devotional service means engaging everything for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 92. When proceeding toward Vrindavan, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was overwhelmed with ecstatic love for Krishna, and he lost all remembrance of the external world. In this way he traveled continuously for 3 days in Radha Desh, the country where the Ganges River does not flow. Text 93. First of all, Lord Nityananda bewildered Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by bringing him along the banks of the Ganges, saying that it was the river Yamuna. Text 94. After 3 days, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to the house of Advaita Acharya in Shantipur and accepted alms there. This was his first acceptance of alms. At night, he performed congregational chanting there. Purport. It appears that in his transcendental ecstasy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu forgot to eat for 3 continuous days. He was then misled by Nityananda Prabhu, who said that the river Ganges was the Yamuna. Because the Lord was in the ecstasy of going to Vrindavan, he was engladdened to see the Yamuna, although in actuality the river was the Ganges. In this way the Lord was brought to the house of Advaita Prabhu at Shantipur after 3 days, and he accepted food there. As long as the Lord remained there, he saw his mother Shachi Devi, and every night executed congregational chanting with all the devotees. Text 95. At the house of Advaita Prabhu, he met his mother, as well as all the devotees from Mayapur. He adjusted everything and then went to Jagannath Puri. Purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu knew very well that his acceptance of sannyas was a thunderbolt for his mother. He therefore called for his mother and the devotees from Mayapur, and by the arrangement of Sri Advaita Acharya, he met them for the last time after his acceptance of sannyas. His mother was overwhelmed with grief when she saw that he was clean-shaven. There was no longer any beautiful hair on his head. Mother Sachi was pacified by all the devotees, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked her to cook for him because he was very hungry, not having taken anything for 3 days. His mother immediately agreed, and forgetting everything else, she cooked for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during all the 3 days she was at the house of Sri Advaita Prabhu. Then, after a few days, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested his mother's permission to go to Jagannath Puri. At his mother's request, he made Jagannath Puri his headquarters after his acceptance of sannyas. Thus everything was adjusted, and with his mother's permission, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu proceeded toward Jagannath Puri. Text 96. On the way toward Jagannath Puri, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed many other pastimes. He visited various temples and heard the story about Madhavendra Puri and the installation of Gopal. Purport. This Madhava Puri is Madhavendra Puri. Another Madhava Puri is Madhvacharya, who was the spiritual master of a devotee in the line of Gadadhar Pandit, who wrote a book known as Sri Mangala Bhashya. Madhvacharya, however, is different from Madhavendra Puri, who was mentioned in this verse. Text 97. From Nityananda Prabhu, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the story of Chira Chori Gopinath, and of the witness Gopal. Then Nityananda Prabhu broke the sannyas rod belonging to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Purport. This Chira Chori Gopinath is situated in Rimuna, about 5 miles away from the Balasore station on the Northeastern Railway, formerly known as the Bengal Mayapur Railway. This station is situated a few miles from the famous Kharagpur Junction Station. Some time ago, the head of the temple was Shyamasundar Adhikari from Gopi Balapur, which lies on the border of the district of Midnapur. Shyamasundar Adhikari was a descendant of Rasikananda Murari, the chief disciple of Shyamananda Goswami. A few miles before the Jagannath Puri station is a small station called Shakshi Gopal. Near this station is a village named Satyavadi, where the temple of Shakshi Gopal is situated. Text 98. After his sannyas rod was broken by Nityananda Prabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu apparently became very angry and left his company to travel alone to the Jagannath temple. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entered the Jagannath temple and saw Lord Jagannath, he immediately lost his senses and fell down on the ground. Text 99. After Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw Lord Jagannath in the temple and fell down unconscious, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya took him to his home. The Lord remained unconscious until the afternoon, when he finally regained his consciousness. Text 100. I guess he can. Are we back on? Sorry for that interruption. That was Pundarik Prabhu, my consultant in many ways, and I'll be calling you back afterwards. Okay, we're on text 100. The Lord had left Nityananda's company and had gone alone to the Jagannath temple. But later, Nityananda, Jagadananda, Damodar, and Mukunda came to see him, and after seeing him, they were very pleased. Text 101. After this incident, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bestowed his mercy upon Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya by showing him his original form as the Lord. Text 102. After bestowing mercy upon Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the Lord started for southern India. When he came to Kurmakshetra, he delivered a person named Vasudeva. Text 103. After visiting Kurmakshetra, the Lord visited the South Indian temple of Jyada Nishinga and offered his prayers to Lord Nishingadev. On his way, he introduced the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra in every village. Text 104. Once, the Lord mistook the forest on the bank of the river Godavari to be Vrindavan. In that place, he happened to meet Ramananda Roy. Text 105. He visited the place known as Tirumala in Tirupati, where he extensively preached the chanting of the Lord's holy name. Purport. This holy place is situated in the district of Tanjore, Chittor, South India. The Temple of Tirupati is situated in the valley of Venkatachala and contains a deity of Lord Ramachandra. On top of Venkatachala is the famous temple of Balaji. Text 106. After visiting the temple of Tirumala in Tirupati, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had to subdue some atheists. He then visited the temple of Ahovala Nishinga. Purport. The Ahovala temple is situated in Dakshinatya, in the district of Karnula, within the subdivision of Sarbela. Throughout the whole district, this famous temple is much appreciated by the people. There are 8 other temples also, and all of them together are called the Navanishinga temples. There is much wonderful architecture and artistic engraving work in these temples. However, it is stated in the local gazette, the Karnula Manual, the work is not complete. Text 107. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to the land of Sri Rangakshetra on the bank of the Kaveri, he visited the temple of Sri Ranganath and was there overwhelmed in the ecstasy of love of Godhead. Text 108. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lived in the house of Tirmala Bhatta. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lived in the house of Trimala Bhatta for the 4 months of the rainy season. Text 109. Sri Trimala Bhatta was both a member of the Sri Vaishnava community and a learned scholar. Therefore, when he saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was both a great scholar and a great devotee of the Lord, he was very much astonished. Text 110. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passed the Chaturmasya months with the Sri Vaishnavas, singing, chanting singing, chanting the holy name, and dancing. Text 111. At the end of Chaturmasya, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued traveling throughout South India. At that time he met Paramananda Puri. Text 112. After this, Krishnadas, the servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was delivered from the clutches of a Bhattahari. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then preached that Lord Krishna's name should also be chanted by Brahmanas who were accustomed to chanting Lord Brahma's name. Purport. In the Malabar district, a section of the Brahmanas are known as Nambudhari Brahmanas, and the Bhattaharis are their priests. Bhattaharis know many tantric black arts, such as the art of killing a person, of bringing him under submission, and of destroying or devastating him. They are very expert in these black arts, and one such Bhattahari bewildered the personal servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, while the servant accompanied the Lord in his travels through South India. Somehow or other, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delivered this Krishnadas from the clutches of the Bhattahari. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is well known as Patita Pavana, the savior of all fallen souls, and he proved this in his behavior toward his personal servant, Krishnadas, whom he saved. Sometimes the word Bhattahari is misspelled in Bengal as Bhattamari. Text 113. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then met Sri Rangapuri and mitigated all the sufferings of a Brahmana named Ramadas. Text 114. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also had a discussion with the Tattvavadi community, and the Tattvavadis felt themselves to be inferior Vaishnavas. Purport. The Tattvavadi sect belongs to the Madhvacharyas, to Madhvacharya's Vaishnava community, but its behavior differs from the strict Madhvacharya Vaishnava principles. There is one monastery named Uttararadi, and one of its commanders was named Raghuvarya Tirtha Madhvacharya. Text 115. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then visited the Vishnu temples of Anantadev, Purushottama, Sri Janardhan, Padmanabha, and Vasudeva. Purport. A temple of Ananta Padmanabha Vishnu is situated in the Trivandrum district, Tiruvananthapuram. This temple is very famous in those quarters. Another Vishnu temple named Sri Janardhana is situated about 26 miles north of the Trivandrum district, near the railway station called Varkala. 116. After that, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delivered the celebrated Saptatala. After that, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu delivered the celebrated Saptatala trees, took his bath at Setubandha Rameshwar, and visited the temple of Lord Shiva, known as Rameshwar. Purport. It is said that the Saptatala trees were very old, massive palm trees. There was once a fight between Bali and his brother Sugriva, and Lord Ramachandra took the side of Sugriva and killed Bali, keeping himself behind one of those celebrated trees. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu toured South India, he embraced the trees, which were delivered and directly promoted to Vaikuntha. Text 117. At Rameshwar, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had a chance to read the Kurma Purana, in which he discovered that the form of Sita kidnapped by Ravana was not that of the real Sita, but a mere shadow representation. Purport. The Kurma Purana states that this shadowy Sita was placed into a fire as a test of chastity. It was Maya Sita who entered the fire, and the real Sita who came out of the fire. Text 118. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very glad to read about the false Sita, and he remembered his meeting with Ramadasa Vipra, who was very sorry that Mother Sita had been kidnapped by Ravana. Text 119. Indeed, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu eagerly tore this page from the Kurma Purana, although the book was very old, and he later showed it to Ramdas Vipra, whose unhappiness was mitigated. You can see how spontaneous Lord Chaitanya was. His movement is like that, following in his footsteps. Text 120. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also found two other books, namely the Brahma Samhita and Krishna Karnamrita. Knowing these books to be excellent, he took them to present to his devotees. Purport. In the olden days, there were no presses, and all the important scriptures were handwritten and kept in large temples. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu found the Brahma Samhita and Krishna Karnamrita in handwritten texts, and knowing them to be very authoritative, he took them with him to present to his devotees. Of course, he obtained the permission of the temple commander. Now both the Brahma Samhita and Krishna Karnamrita are available in print with commentaries by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Text 121. After collecting these books, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to Jagannath Puri. At that time, the bathing ceremony of Jagannath was taking place, and he saw it. Text 122. When Jagannath was absent from the temple, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who could not see him, felt separation and left Jagannath Puri to go to a place known as Alalanath. Purport. Alalanath is also known as Brahmagiri. This place is about 14 miles from Jagannath Puri and is also on the beach. There is a temple of Jagannath there. At the present moment, a police station and post office are situated there because so many people come to see the temple. The word anavasara is used when Sri Jagannath Ji cannot be seen in the temple. After the bathing ceremony, Snanayatra, Lord Jagannath apparently becomes sick. He is therefore removed to his private apartment where no one can see him. Actually, during this period, renovations are made on the body of the Jagannath deity. This is called Navayovana. During the Rathayatra ceremony, Lord Jagannath once again comes before the public. Thus, for 15 days after the bathing ceremony, Lord Jagannath is not visible to any visitors. Text 123. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remained for some days at Alalanath. In the meantime, he received news that all the devotees from Bengal were coming to Jagannath Puri. Text 124. When the devotees from Bengal arrived at Jagannath Puri, both Nityananda Prabhu and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya greatly endeavored to take Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu back to Jagannath Puri. Text 125. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu finally left Alalanath to return to Jagannath Puri, he was overwhelmed both day and night due to separation from Jagannath. His lamentation knew no bounds. During this time, all the devotees from different parts of Bengal, and especially from Navadvip, arrived in Jagannath Puri. Text 126. After due consideration, all the devotees began chanting the holy name congregationally. Lord Chaitanya's mind was thus pacified by the ecstasy of the chanting. Purport. Being absolute in all circumstances, Lord Jagannath's person, form, picture, and kirtan are all identical. Therefore, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, he was pacified. Previously, he had been feeling very morose due to separation from Jagannath. The conclusion is that whenever a kirtan of pure devotees takes place, the Lord is immediately present. By chanting the holy names of the Lord, we associate with the Lord personally. Text 127. Previously, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had been touring South India, he had met Ramananda Roy on the banks of the Godavari. At that time, it had been decided that Ramananda Roy would resign from his post as governor and return to Jagannath Puri to live with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 128. Upon the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Ramananda Roy took leave of the king and returned to Jagannath Puri. After he arrived, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became very much enjoyed talking with him both day and night about Lord Krishna and his pastimes. Text 129. After Ramananda Roy's arrival, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bestowed his mercy upon Kashi Mishra and met Pradyumna Mishra and other devotees. At that time, 3 personalities, Paramananda Puri, Govinda, and Kashishwar, came to see Lord Chaitanya at Jagannath Puri. Text 130. Eventually, there was a meeting with Swarup Damodar Goswami, and the Lord became greatly pleased. Then there was a meeting with Shiki Mahiti and with Bhavananda Roy, the father of Ramananda Roy. Text 131. All the devotees from Bengal gradually began arriving at Jagannath Puri. At this time, the residents of Kulinagram also came to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for the first time. Text 132. Eventually, Narahari Das and other inhabitants of Kanda, along with Shivananda Sen, all arrived, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met them. Text 133. After seeing the bathing ceremony of Lord Jagannath, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu washed and cleansed and cleaned Sri Gundicha temple with the assistance of many devotees. Text 134. After this, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the devotees saw the Rath Yatra, the car festival ceremony. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself danced in front of the car, and after dancing, he entered a garden. 135. In that garden, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bestowed his mercy upon King Prataparudra. Afterwards, when the Bengali devotees were about to return home, the Lord gave separate orders to almost every one of them. Text 136. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu desired to meet all the devotees of Bengal every year. Therefore he ordered them to come to see the Rath Yatra festival every year. Text 137. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was invited to dine at the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. While he was eating sumptuously, the son-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the husband of his daughter Shati, criticized him. Because of this, Shati's mother cursed him by praying that Shati would become a widow. In other words, she cursed her son-in-law to die. Text 138. At the end of the year, all the devotees from Bengal, headed by Advaita Acharya, again came to see the Lord. Indeed, there was a great rush of devotees to Jagannath Puri. Text 139. When all the devotees from Bengal arrived, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu allotted them residential quarters, and Shivananda Sen was put in charge of their maintenance. Text 140. A dog accompanied Shivananda Sen and the devotees, And that dog was so fortunate that after seeing the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it was liberated and went back home, back to Godhead. Text 141. Everyone met Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya on his way to Varanasi. Text 142. After arriving at Jagannath Puri, all the Vaishnavas met with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Later, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sported in the water, taking all their devotees with him. That verse sounds almost out of time, doesn't it? I see. So it seems that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya traveled to Varanasi around that time, or at that time. After arriving at Jagannath Puri, all the Vaishnavas met with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Later, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sported in the water, taking all the devotees with him. Text 143. First, the Lord washed the temple of Gundicha very thoroughly. Then everyone saw the Rath Yatra festival and the Lord's dancing before the car. Text 144. In the garden along the road from the Jagannath temple to Gundicha, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performed various pastimes. A Brahmana named Krishnadas performed the bathing ceremony of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 145. After dancing in the Gundicha temple, the Lord sported in the water with his devotees, and on the Hera Panchami day, they all saw the activities of the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi Devi. Text 146. On Janmashtami, Lord Krishna's birthday, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dressed himself as a cowherd boy. At that time he carried a balance with pots of yogurt and wheeled a rod about. Text 147. After this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bade farewell to all the devotees from Gaudadesh, Bengal, and continued chanting with his intimate devotees who constantly remained with him. Text 148. To visit Vrindavan, the Lord went to Gaudadesh, Bengal. On the way, King Prataparudra performed a variety of services to please the Lord. Text 149. On the way to Vrindavan, via Bengal, there was an incident wherein some cloth was exchanged with Puri Gosai. Sri Ramananda Roy accompanied the Lord as far as the city of Bhadraka. Text 150. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu reached Vidyanagar, Bengal, on the way to Vrindavan, he stopped at the house of Vidyabachaspati, who was the brother of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu suddenly arrived at his house, great crowds of people gathered. Text 151. For 5 consecutive days, all the people gathered to see the Lord, and still there was no rest. Out of fear of the crowd, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left at night and went to the town of Kulia, present-day Navadvip. Purport. If one considers the statements of the Chaitanya Bhagavat along with the description by Lochan Das Thakur, it is clear that present-day Navadvip was formerly known as Kulia Gram. While at Kulia Gram, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bestowed his favor upon Devananda Pandit and delivered Gopala Chapala and many others who had previously committed offenses at his lotus feet. At that time, to go from Vidyanagar to Kuliagram, one had to cross a branch of the Ganges. All of those old places still exist. Chinadanga was formerly situated in Kuliagram, which is now known as Kolera Ganja. Text 153. Hearing of the people's arrival at Kuliagram, many hundreds of thousands of people came to see him. 153. The specific acts performed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at this time were his showing favor to Devananda Pandit and excusing the Brahmana known as Gopala Chapala from the offense he had committed at the lotus feet of Srivas Thakur. Many atheists and blasphemers came and fell at the lotus feet of the Lord, and the Lord in return excused them and gave them love of Krishna. Text 155. When Sri Nishingananda Brahmachari heard that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would go to Vrindavan, he became very pleased and mentally began decorating the way there. 156. First, Nishingananda Brahmachari contemplated a broad road starting from the city of Kulia. He bedecked the road with jewels, upon which he then laid a bed of stemless flowers. 157. He mentally decorated both sides of the road with bakul flower trees, and at intervals on both sides he placed lakes of a transcendental nature. Text 158. These lakes had bathing places constructed with jewels, and they were filled with blossoming lotus flowers. There were various birds chirping, and the water was exactly like nectar. Text 159. The entire road was surcharged with many cool breezes, which carried the fragrances from various flowers. He carried the construction of this road as far as Kanai-Natashala. Purport. Kanai-Natashala is about 200 miles from Calcutta on the loop line of the Eastern Railway. The railway station is named Talajadi, and after one gets off at that station, he has to go about 2 miles to find Kanai-Natashala. Text 160. Within the mind of Nishingananda Brahmachari, the road could not be constructed beyond Kanai-Natashala. He could not understand why the road's construction could not be completed, and thus he was astonished. 161. With great assurance, he then told the devotees that Lord Chaitanya would not go to Vrindavan at that time. Purport. Sri Nishingananda Brahmachari was a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, when he heard that from Kulia, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was going to Vrindavan, although he had no material wealth, he began to construct within his mind a very attractive path or road for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to traverse. Some of the descriptions of this path is given above, but even mentally, he could not construct the road beyond Kanai-Natashala. Therefore he concluded that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not go to Vrindavan at that time. For a pure devotee, it is the same whether he materially constructs a path or constructs it within his mind. This is because the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Janardana, is bhavagrahi, or appreciative of the sentiment. For him, a path made with actual jewels and a path made of mental jewels are the same. Though subtle, mind is also matter. So any path, indeed anything for the service of the Lord, whether in gross matter or in subtle matter, is accepted equally by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord accepts the attitude of his devotee and sees how much he is prepared to serve him. The devotee is at liberty to serve the Lord either in gross matter or in subtle matter. The important point is that the service be in relation with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9:26, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam Yomi Bhaktya Priyachitati Tadaham Bhaktuparitam Ashnami Prayatatpanaha. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. The real ingredient is bhakti, devotion. Pure devotion is uncontaminated by the modes of material nature. Ahaituki apratiyata. Unconditional devotional service cannot be checked by any material condition. This means that one does not have to be very rich to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even the poorest man can equally serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead if he has pure devotion. If there is no ulterior motive, devotional service cannot be checked by any material condition. Text 162. Nrsingananda Brahmachari said, "The Lord will go to Kanai Natashala and then will return. All of you will come to know of this later, but I now say this with great assurance." When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to proceed from Kulia toward Vrindavan, thousands of men were with him, and all of them were devotees. 164. Wherever the Lord visited, crowds of innumerable people came to see him. When they saw him, all their unhappiness and lamentation disappeared. Text 165. Wherever the Lord touched the ground with his lotus feet, people immediately came and gathered the dirt. Indeed, they gathered so much that many holes were created in the road. Sounds like the road from Calcutta to Mayapur. Text 166. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu eventually arrived at a village named Ramakeli. This village is situated on the border of Bengal and is very exquisite. Purport. Ramakeli Gram is situated on the banks of the Ganges on the border of Bengal. Srila Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis had their residences in this village. Text 167. While performing Sankirtan in Ramakeli Gram, the Lord danced and sometimes lost consciousness due to love of God. While at Ramakeli Gram, an unlimited number of people came to see his lotus feet. I'm going to stop here. It's 8:03. I got this very important phone call from Pundarik, and I need to call him back as soon as possible. So that's it for tonight for the reading, but we do have our little, open mic over here that our brahmachari, Abhay Das Brahmachari, is manning and ready to read out any reflections or discussions or anything else that the devotees have to say. I thought so. Radharaman is waving his hands like he wants something. And here it is.
It's just a small reflection, Maharaj, that you might like to comment on. It's just the Krishnadas Kaviraj's brief description of forthcoming pastimes. It's like an arc that's concluded in the beginning of the Anti-Lila, where Prabhupada comments with one of my favorite purports, because he then says at the beginning of the Anti-Lila, I briefly described the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu known as Madhya-lila. Now I shall attempt to describe something about his last pastimes known as the Anti-Lila. I have briefly described the Anti-Lila within the description of the Madhya-lila, and I am now almost an invalid because of old age, and I know that at any moment I may die. Therefore I have already described some portions of the Anti-lila. And then Prabhupada says in the purport, following in the footsteps of Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, I am trying to translate Srimad Bhagavatam as quickly as possible. However, knowing myself to be an old man and almost an invalid because of rheumatism, I have already translated the essence of all literatures, the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, as a summary study in English. I started the Krishna consciousness movement at the age of 70. Now I am 78, and so my death is imminent. I'm trying to finish the translation of Srimad Bhagavatam as soon as possible.
Mm.
But before finishing it, I have given my readers the book Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so that if I die before finishing the whole task, they may enjoy this book, which is the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam.
Mm. Well, what can I say about that, except that Srila Prabhupada's mercy is unlimited. I can say it's a personal thing that I have begun now to try to finish the major works of Srila Prabhupada and publish them in a different way than they've ever been published before, and that is by audio book. That means I have to read all of, you notice when I read I make a lot of mistakes, because you can't, I don't know, maybe I'm just spontaneous, I don't know, but I can't read perfectly. I always make mistakes. But to do an audiobook, you can't make any mistakes. So therefore you have to stop and start and just pick that which is perfect. And then it has to be edited, the sound has to be edited together. And I was reading one purport in the, I think when I was doing the audiobook recording, which is now being edited, by the way, and hopefully we'll be able to finish it maybe by Gaur Purnima. Anyway, that's the goal. I read this per the purport, and Prabhupada was explaining how he felt when one of his books was published. And I began to get this feeling inside, this overwhelming feeling of realization that what I was doing at the moment was actually doing what was necessary to publish his books in a way that had never been published before, and that's through the audio, medium of audiobooks. And I just got very, very happy. So now, I'm 74, and, I'm not Prabhupada by any stretch of the imagination, or to speak of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami at his age, what he was doing. But still, my mother left her body when she was 79, so, hopefully I'll outlive my mother, but who knows, anything can happen. I mean, Bhakti Chiru Maharaj just left this world when he was 74. And I'm going to be 74 in just a few days. So I'm praying to Srila Prabhupada and to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the previous acharyas and all the devotees out there in cyberspace who I know are waiting for these audiobooks to come so that I can actually finish them, right? But I decided to do the Caitanya-caritämrta first because as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said in this quote that we read every day before we read the Caitanya-caritämrta for the daily readings, this book is above all the other books. And this book is so important that you can understand everything. Bhaktisiddhanta said, the Shastras can be reconstructed from just this book. So that what that means is that all the Shastras are there, woven together in the verses themselves, not in the purports, in the verses themselves. And everything comes together and makes complete sense. Therefore, Prabhupada called it the perfect Shastra. So anyway, we've done the main recording. We do have some overdubs to do yet, but then I'm planning to do the Gita next, then the Krishna book, which was just mentioned by Radharaman when he read this purport, Prabhupada's purport, and the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. That's a big deal. The whole Srimad Bhagavatam read without a mistake. Hare Krishna. And then if I live long enough, I want to redo the Briyat Bhagavatamrita because apparently by some technical accident, one hard drive exploded and we lost the second volume, or it seems like it. And therefore, it's lost. So I'm going to try to record the Briyat Bhagavatamrita as well. So at my age, I need all the mercy I can get from all the devotees. Hare Krishna. So in that way, I'm trying to reflect the mood of Prabhupada.
Comment from Sudevi Dasi.
Hare Krishna, Sudevi.
She says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances.
Haribo,
Glories to
Haribo.
Srila Prabhupada. I just want to say that you reading and audiobooks is truly a lifesaver for me because I have too short of an attention span to read on my own. I will hear you reading for as long as I live.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much. I will be saying things out loud for as long as I live, so therefore we'll be living there transcendentally, as we heard that Nrsimha Brahmachari was doing his service in his mind, and the mental forms that he was, worshipping the Lord with are considered to be non-different if one's pure-hearted and doesn't have an ulterior motive. That's really an important point. If you have no ulterior motive, that's what makes you a pure devotee. We don't have to be one of a big acharya or a big sannyasi traveling around or building temples and doing big services. Any service, if done without ulterior motives, makes one a pure devotee. It isn't a material position. So now, are there more? Okay, so this is a good stopping place because I really feel obliged to call Pundarik because he called me, and I have a couple of very important things to discuss with him to get his counsel on. And so I'm going to stop for tonight, a little after 10. We got an hour in. Thank you so much, all of you, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Same time, same station, same place. Sri Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai. Sama Beda Bhakta Brinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night. Hari Krishna. Hari Bol.